Hey, Tommy, it's finally here, the new Jaguar concept.
Yeah, so what we're looking at here is probably the most controversial concept of maybe my lifetime. One of the most controversial rebrands in the last decade. We're talking about Jaguar and the Type 00 that they just debuted. This is a car that's blowing up the internet, maybe not for all the right reasons, but in today's video, we're discussing whether or not this was the right move.
Yeah, they put out a commercial basically showing a bunch of people doing funny things and not showing the car, and everybody thought that the commercial was too woke. And when we did the video, people said in the comments, go woke, go broke.
Yeah, and that seems to be kind of the tip of the spear as to what people feel about the new Jaguar. I don't think I agree with that, though, because what Jaguar has done is put themselves in the limelight maybe for the first time since Ford bought the company over 20 years ago. I actually think Jaguar is doing some smart things. There's a saying in the world, there's no such thing as bad press. There's no such thing as bad publicity, maybe I should say. And Jaguar is getting all the publicity they could ever want right now. Every news outlet, even mainstream non-automotive outlets, cartoons are all talking about Jaguar. They're all talking about this new car. And if you're rebranding a company, that's exactly what you want.
Well, the problem was they weren't talking about the new car. They were talking about the commercial.
Well, the commercial featured a bunch of people in funny outfits kind of doing artistic things, and there were paintbrushes and spinning and funny haircuts. And then, of course, there was the new logo, which is a mixture of uppercase and lowercase, which doesn't look anything like their old logo. And then at the Miami Art Festival show,
Yeah,
Art
something like
District?
that. No, what was it called? Anyway, they just unveiled it. And so finally we've got the car. So let's talk about the car.
Yeah.
And let's talk about what they have done. So first and foremost, I remember it wasn't that long ago when electric cars were just starting to be born. A lot of the designers were saying it'll allow us to do crazy things because now we don't have to have the engine in the front and we have a lot more room. You know, we could do all kinds of cool designs. And then unfortunately what happened was the most popular electric car is a boring mid-size kind of crossover called the Tesla Model Y, and all that great design language that was supposed to go into electric cars became boring crossovers. But here, Jaguar actually did something that was unique. I mean, look at the length of that, as the British say, bonnet, and look at the proportions of that car, right? The closest thing you get to that car is maybe the Spectre, the Rolls Royce, but more or less to me, it reminds me of like the 1930s cars. I'm thinking like Packards and Bugattis and all these really cool kind of pre-war cars that set the design language that had massive V12s. And now we've got this ridiculously long hood and we've got these ridiculously giant wheels. I love the design, actually. The straight up and down grille. I mean, it's cool.
I think a lot of the proportions, speaking of the 1930s, there's a 1938 Mercedes called the 540K Stromlinenwagen, which looks like a supervillain car with that huge hood, and then it's got kind of this almost DC-3-like airplane cockpit, which is what we see in this vehicle as well. So I do see a lot of that. This, in my mind, is not a beautiful car. This is a very brutalist design. It's very, in some ways, I would say Soviet architecture, in that everything is perfectly angular and there's not a lot of cohesion to it, in my opinion, because you've got this swooping roofline with this vertical waterfall of a grille and then these sharp creases. I don't think it's a particularly elegant design. I think it's very brutalist, and it's shocking. I think that's the word for it. It makes a statement.
Well, it's bold that they brought it out in pink, and then of course that blue one, that's called London blue, whatever that means. But these are very, I mean, nobody builds a pink car except maybe for, what's that brand that sells pink Cadillacs?
Mary Kay.
Mary Kay. But there's a reason manufacturers don't do pink cars, because they're so strident and they're so shocking. And yet this is exactly the concept that Jaguar came up with. Now, of course, the concept has dihedral doors. The talk on the street, Tommy, is that this is a two-seater. The production version might be a four-seater, and they might do the suicide doors in the back. So those dihedral doors, right, the ones that go straight up, probably aren't going to last. Now, if you look at the interior design, it gets even funkier.
Yeah, I mean, it's very clear, and Jaguar said this is a concept, right? This is going to tease the design language moving forward. It's not going to be copy and pasted onto roads that we see today. And certainly we see a lot more of that in the inside with this kind of squircle steering wheel and some of the very minimalist design elements.
Well, the craziest thing about the interior is that separator between the passenger and the driver, right? I mean, The Bugatti Chiron kind of does that. The Corvette does that, but these guys have taken it to like, business class where there's a divider between the two seats. And I mean, it's a car that if you don't love your passenger, this is the vehicle. I'm not sure that's going to make it into the actual design of the car, but it might.
The problem I have with this is I understand that a concept car is a place to showcase the designs of the future, right? But if you're going to showcase the designs of the future, I don't understand this trend now, and I think we have Elon to blame for some of this, of just making things so austere, right? Like the Cybertruck. There's so many ways to do absolutely stunning concept cars. Mazda has done some really elegant designs in the past. Jaguar has done some beautiful concepts in the past. And it's a place to kind of express, to flex your artistic muscles. And I'm not sure that Jerry McGovern and his team did a great job with this. I think austere is the way to put it. This looks like a villain car in an apocalyptic movie when it could have looked like a recreation of a modern take of a Jaguar E-Type that truly is stunning. And I know they're trying to do something new and different that hasn't been done before, but I'm just not sure that this is it.
Well, I think you put your finger on it when you said Cybertruck, right? The last time there was this much interest, outrage, social media hype was when the Cybertruck came out. And I think that if Jaguar was going for something that was that controversial and that different, I think they've succeeded. Now, like I said, I'm kind of disappointed. For me, I like the exterior design, especially this front three-quarter is especially handsome. I'm not sure about the rear. That almost looks like some old Porsche racing cars. But the interior is where it kind of lets me down because you're right, they did go the minimalist route. So what they did was they hid the screens, but I wish they had kind of gone more in the Bugatti way where they actually have these really intricate, almost mechanical dials, right? That brought back maybe the 30s that they're kind of hinting at with the exterior design, but instead all they did was hide the screens, and that to me is kind of lame. They also have these like nacelles that you can put in the car and then you can change the atmosphere. So I suppose it changes the lighting of the car. It changes the smell in the car. I think that's kind of a cool concept. But I mean, this is a bold new direction for Jaguar. And it's funny, in that first video we did, like I said, the #1 comment was go woke, go broke. And I kept thinking to myself, Jaguar is going broke, right? The people that kept typing that, my response to them was, how many Jaguars have you bought in the last 10 years? And it's kind of like going to a blind man and saying, if you take this surgery that might bring back your sight, you're going to go blind. And the blind man's like, dude, I'm already blind. I'm already broke.
Sure.
What have I got to lose? But by going, crazy, which is kind of what they did. And, Jaguar has always reinvented itself, right? It used to be actually SS. Was the name of the company, and they changed it to Jaguar after the war because, of course, SS has a wrong connotation. So this is not new for the brand to completely reinvent itself, and I give them a lot of kudos for coming out with something that's this bold. Now, keep in mind, it's going to cost $124,000 base, and that's pounds, not dollars.
Who said that? I didn't read that.
Yeah, I think that's what the word on the street is.
I don't think it's been officially announced. I mean, I know that they're moving way up brand, right? They're going beyond just premium, beyond luxury to this ultra luxury space. I think that's too conservative. I think that this is more realistically going to be like a Cadillac Celestiq competitor.
No, I said base price in pounds. I think that's...
But that doesn't sound expensive enough. I mean,
that's $170,000.
Yeah, but the Celestiq is $300
for the base, for the very beginning.
But for the
one.
base, the Cadillac's $300. For the base, the Rolls Royce is like $400.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to come back at a Rolls Royce.
I mean, I see this coming up. I could see this being a $300,000 play that they're going at.
And I think they also said it's going to have around 450 miles, and that may be on the European cycle
Of range.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, we're looking at an all-electric car. Jaguar has announced that they're going all-electric.
I think that's their big mistake. If they had really leaned in to the 1930s Art Deco appearance and aura, which is kind of what this is going for. If they had given this car a brand new inline 6 or heck an inline 8, something that no manufacturer is doing now, and completely eliminated the screens, give it beautifully engineered, turned aluminum dials instead of touchscreen, no screens in this at all, I think you would have a $500,000 play on your hands that the ultra rich would be clamoring for.
I'm not sure European regulations would allow for that. I love where you're going with it, Tommy. I mean, if you're going to go straight 8, go 12-cylinder, but I just don't think that the European emissions regulations nor the European mandates to have EVs would allow for a brand new straight A car. But it would be wonderful.
Well, then make
in
it
America,
electric.
we could do it.
But kind of do it an old school throwback to a time before digitalization. Then I think people would be more interested in spending that $300,000, which it could cost. But just coming out with another dual motor car with 1,000 acres of technology in it, I'm not sure it's going to differentiate the brand enough from what Rolls-Royce and Cadillac and the rest are doing.
Well, the other thing that's unique about this car is the lack of any sort of Britishness. The only British thing about these two cars is the London blue that's shown in the concept car, right? There's a certain flavor that a British car has, and Jaguar has always kind of leaned into. This is none of that, and I think that's also very bold, that they completely went away from their heritage. And a lot of people would argue that going away completely from your heritage is throwing away the one advantage that you have over, especially the Chinese brands, right? Because there's a lot of new vehicles out there, and I'm talking about less than 10 years old, maybe 20 years old, that are now very popular. Tesla would be a great example of that have no heritage. So the question maybe that they ask themselves is, like, how much is our heritage worth? And maybe the answer they came back with, especially when you're seeing like Lotus being completely rebranded, and you're seeing Tesla that's now that has the best-selling car in the world. These companies have no heritage. Well, Lotus does, but Tesla doesn't, and yet they're being very successful. So I kind of think it's bold to walk away from that.
I mean, they're not completely, like, they still have Type 00, right, as a throwback.
Yes, they kept the Type.
D-Type,
yeah,
D-Type,
yeah, they
right?
did keep that. But the logo is completely different, both the Leaper and the little like round logo that's in the steering wheel. I don't know
JR logo.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. But I think a lot of people out there lost their, what, when the first commercial came out. And now that we see the car, I think that it grows on you. When you first see it, like you said initially, you're kind of disappointed by it. But the more you look at it and the more you think about what the direction that this is pointing to, you think to yourself, there's nothing like this. It's the same thing with, like you said, the Celestiq, right? When that first came out, I was like very eyebrowy and very like, I don't like this. But now that I've, kind of come to live with the Celestiq, I kind of like it.
Well, folks, let us know what you think in the comment section. Is Jaguar doing the right move by going completely in a different direction than what they've done in the past? We'd love to hear your feedback, which I'm sure you will leave in the comment section below.
And you know what else I love? For a long time, we haven't had true concept cars. There was like the swing of the pendulum when concept cars became really basically production-ready cars. Right. And at first when that happened, I was like, that's really cool. Like when the Stinger came out, that basically was shown in production form. But now we have a true concept car. We really don't know what the final production car will look like, because a lot of this stuff is probably not going to make it into production.
Be sure to leave us a comment below, and we'll see you next time.
Ciao.